welcome back to my channel. As some of my audience might know, I drive an older 2005 Toyota Echo, although in the near future I will be looking to upgrade to something a little bit newer. And in preparation to do that, I'm looking at all my options to see what might be the best fit. It's really important to be thinking ahead and planning if you're also in the market to get a new car, to be thinking about your options and looking at what's out there and what might be coming up into early production for distribution and sale. Today I wanted to talk about the different types of cars, including gasoline, hybrid, and electric, talking about the different pros and cons of each option, because as we know, we are currently experiencing the effects of climate change. Looking at our rising CO2 emissions, our increase in fossil fuel expansion projects. And so in order to be more environmentally conscious, we have to be looking at ways to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Clearly, we see a lot of people walking and biking and carpooling or taking the bus as often as they can, and those are all great options too. But when we have to travel somewhere a considerably longer distance, that is where we have our reliance on cars. I wanted to mention the role that the pandemic has had in the market for cars. As we know, COVID hit going into 2020, and at that time, we had basically shut down our economy, people were not traveling, there was less cars being produced, and the limited number that were available were more expensive, because when we look at supply and demand curves, there's going to be fewer available and therefore they will cost more. But now that we are in 2023 and the pandemic has started to lessen to a point where the economy is starting to kick back and we're seeing more regular business and activity happening, we are now starting to see more car production in the manufacturing facilities and therefore more cars that are moving around to different parts of the world. I wanted to talk about what you should be looking for in a car before you go out and purchase one. So some key factors to consider. My recommendation is often buying a used car that's been previously owned by somebody else, because they are typically more affordable than buying brand new off the market. As soon as you drive a car off a dealership, its value goes down significantly. The make and the model of the car, the year of the car, and the number of miles on a car. Now, typically I say something less than 100,000 kilometers before you buy it. You also want to be looking to see if the car has rust. So if a car is rusty, it's a red flag. You know that as a car rusts and continues to rust out, it ages very quickly. So if you can find a car with little to no rust, that car is likely going to last you longer. You also want to consider test driving the car before you purchase it, because that way you can hear how it sounds. And if anything is off, it's important to have that checked out by a local mechanic. It's also important to make sure that you talk to the previous owner so that you know the history of the car. If it's been in an accident, if it's had any other damages, you want to be aware of this before you purchase the car. So these are just all important factors to consider. I personally like Toyotas or Hondas because I think they're well-built Japanese cars and they last a long time as long as you maintain them. To talk about the different types of cars, the three I'm going to discuss today are gasoline, hybrid, and electric. As we know, a lot of people are talking now about electric cars as the new and up and emerging trend in society, and there are a lot of pros to them. I'm also aware that there are some cons, but I'd like to discuss both so that I'm giving a neutral and a well-balanced consideration to both sides. So I'll start first with gasoline cars because they're the one that we're likely the most familiar with as the one that we've had around the longest so far. As we know, the pros to the gasoline cars are that they are more affordable than either your hybrid or your electric options. We also know that when you go to get gasoline to fill up your car, that it's typically quicker to get a full tank of gas than it would be to go charge at a charging station for more of what we might call our plug-in hybrid or our electric options. Also, the benefit with the gasoline cars is that you're typically able to travel a longer distance with the amount of gas you're putting in compared to having to charge for a longer period of time to get a further distance. But essentially, you have to look at all the different factors in combination to find the best fit. Now, the cons with gasoline cars are clearly that they are the least environmentally friendly because we have our highest CO2 emissions that are contributing to global warming, and also the fact that you have more mechanical wear and tear on your car. So just think about that in terms of the amount and the number of times, the frequency at which you must go see a mechanic to fix brakes, get oil changes, the list goes on and on. Also important to note is that with the price of gasoline fluctuating and going up and down, shifting all the time, so we have no control over what we're paying for gas at the pumps. Now, to talk about the hybrid cars, this is kind of the happy medium between gasoline and electric, because hybrid cars are a combination of some charged electric battery and your gasoline. And with the hybrid cars, they will run on as much electric charge as they have first, and then they will divert to using gasoline when your electric charge runs out. It's for stability in the gasoline, but also shifting in the direction toward being more fully electric, so that as we are adopting and adapting to these changes, it's more of a slow but gradual transition rather than a sudden one all at once. We know there's also incentives for tax relief if you are able to buy a hybrid. So I'll mention for PEI, because PEI is the province that I reside in, you can get up to $2,500 in a tax rebate. Now, these tax incentives are supposed to help offset the high upfront cost of purchasing a hybrid car. Now, the downsides to the hybrid is clearly that it is more expensive than a gasoline car. Now, talking about electric cars, these are the ones that are fully run on electricity, so there is no gasoline involved. Now, the benefit is clearly that it's the most environmentally friendly in terms of not having any gasoline CO2 emissions into the atmosphere. However, I do hear of some potential new issues that are arising with the development of our lithium-ion batteries. Now, the lithium-ion itself is not very stable. There's potential for it to explode, combust, so it's very important to make sure that when you're talking to manufacturers and when you're going out to purchase your car, you ask them if your hybrid or electric is made with a lithium-ion battery. And I think that as manufacturers are looking into conflicts, they're able to find solutions that we can use. There are alternatives on the market more stable, and it's less likely to be volatile, because we want to try to slow this global warming impact, and we clearly cannot do it with our continued reliance on fossil fuels. Now, with the electric cars, there are significantly fewer parts associated with these vehicles. And because of that, you will have a lower frequency of having to go to your mechanic for local repairs. And ultimately, it's going to save you a lot of money, because you're not going to be spending huge amounts trying to fix parts and pieces when they break down or malfunction. Yes, the upfront cost is the most expensive, but you will get up to a $5,000 tax rebate if you do. Now, as I mentioned, these are PEI figures, so if you live in another province within Canada, the numbers will likely be different. PEI does have, to my knowledge, the best rates at this time. Now, since it is such a new technology, I think that's part of the reason why they are more expensive than our average gasoline cars. However, I do think at some point it would be nice to get to the point where the electric cars could be cheaper, and that would be the bigger incentive to get more people to convert over. Because I do realize that the cost of living is high right now, and for people to be able to afford a hybrid or an electric car is going to be more challenging. Going to be new and emerging ones that are going to be coming out very soon as a fuel cell electric car. And these strictly run on hydrogen. What's happening in PEI right now is known as upcycle. And it's a small business, a dealership owned by two people that came to PEI from Brazil, and they are manufacturing a new type of vehicle that combines a Toyota Corolla with a pickup truck. Now, these are currently being manufactured at a plant in Stratford, and they have a list for up to 100 people to register in advance that would like to purchase these. I believe they're going to be $35,000, maybe before taxes, but ideally the idea of transitioning over to these types of vehicles is very beneficial, because if people are able to drive these and use them for their day-to-day needs to get around, then it's a way to be more environmentally friendly. And it is quite an interesting and an innovative, creative idea, and I'm really curious to see what the results are from this project and to get some reviews from different people that want to purchase these cars and to drive them. So I'm just going to have to wait the next little while and see how those play out. I want to just bring the question back to the viewers, because in the end, you have to decide what's best for you, whether you drive in the city, you drive in the country, in more rural areas, or if you have a combination of both, where you spend some of your time in the cities and some of your time in more of the country areas. So a lot of people might ask, well, really, what's the best type for me? I want to be more environmentally friendly, but I can't afford a more expensive car, so where's the happy medium? To some people, they might say, well, maybe the hybrid's the happy medium because you get a little bit of both. If you tend to drive a lot in cities and you're relatively close to your place of work or your other errands or commute to, then you might want to consider the electric car, because they are well designed with a lot of charging stations in the local cities. So it's a great way to be able to quickly charge up to do your daily commutes. However, if you live in a more rural area where you have longer commutes every day to and from work or to other locations, well then gasoline might still be your best option, because you have that reliance on there being more gas stations dispersed amongst other places. And then finally, if you're more of that in-between type of person where you have some city driving and some country driving, then you might like the hybrid option because you have a little bit of the flexibility of both. So at the end of the day, it's really your decision. Just lots of good information out there. You can do lots of research, and I think the more that you're educating yourself and watching news on the media, reading about new and emerging trends and about different startup initiatives and projects that are happening, we'll have a better sense of where things are going in the future. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye friends.